0, 1.
Let's get started.
And hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Black and White United Show. I'm your host Andreas and thank you for tuning in. Lots has happened over the last 24 hours. We've got players who have been delisted. We've got guys coming in. We've got guys that were supposed to come in which we haven't heard about. We've got interviews and stuff like that from the list management team. Dan Houston's done his interview and stuff, but we're not going to talk about Dan Houston in this one. We're just going to cut straight to our delistings and we're going to cut straight to what's basically going to happen now for the next couple of weeks. So one of the players that we say goodbye to is Nathan Kruger, the other one's Josh Hare, and the other one is Bytel. Now, just really on Kruger, I had a whole list of things here I was going to say about him, but to be honest, we all know the journey that he was going to take, or the journey that he did take. He just couldn't get his body right. When he did come on though, and he played well for us, you know, it was usually like half a game where he'd do really well. I thought his best game, for me personally, the game that he really stood up and the game that it was like we finally found that third tall forward, was the game against Melbourne on King's birthday this year. I thought he played really well that game and I was like, oh, this is what we're after. And it just hasn't happened because of the injuries and stuff and the tight squeeze for spots, I suppose. So he wasn't within a contract. He didn't have a contract for next season. So they're always going to get rid of the player that hasn't got the contract compared to someone like Ash Johnson, who's still got a year to run on his contract. I agree with the decision that the club's made. I think if the role was reversed, then Ash Johnson would have been delisted, but the guy's under contract, so they're not going to pay out the contract when they can just try and get him for another season and see what happens. And to be honest, if we've got a whole bunch of injuries, Ash Johnson will obviously come in that position, I suppose, as a third tall key forward. Remember in 23 though, we had Darcy Cameron and Mason Cox out, and the two ruckmen that we had was Billy Frampton and Ash Johnson. So we need him there this season or next season, however we want to look at it, coming up just for some squad depth. Josh Hare didn't really get a good go at it. He came to the club with the hamstring ripped off the bone. The experiment there didn't kind of work. So, you know, the club tried. It didn't happen, and I'm not surprised in the delisting. Maybe they could have given it one more year, but with the likes of what they're going to bring in, which we'll talk about later, then obviously, you know, shit happens. Sorry. The last one is obviously Jack Bytel. Now, this one here, it was either going to be a toss between him or Sullivan, who was going to get delisted. I'm sort of glad that we didn't get rid of Sullivan. I thought Sullivan showed a lot more in the games that he played towards the start of the season. Now, when there was injuries and stuff like that, Bytel came in and he didn't set the world alight, but he played his role. And thank you for that. I also think that he kind of reminded me of like back in the early, like 2011, 2012, 2013. He reminded me a little bit of Simon Buckley, like didn't set the world alight, came in, did his job, didn't have the greatest of games, didn't set the world alight, but we needed him there because we were obviously just like decimated with injuries this year. So that's how I saw it. Leave a comment below, tell me how you think, tell me what you think. I'm okay with the delistings. It is sad to see Kruger go. I mean, we're not going to have the big crew like with Tommy Marks and stuff, but at the same time, it is what it is. And it's shit because you always get these guys coming to the club like a Dan Houston, Harry Perryman. We're probably going to get Tim Membry, which we'll talk about in a sec. So what happens with the list spots now? I think we are cooling off on the whole Hayes thing from St Kilda. He did his medical. We haven't heard anything. There's been no tweets from journos. There's been no reports directly from the club. We haven't heard anything of what's happening there. When did he do his medical? Almost a week ago now, was it? So, you know, you would have heard something by now. Membry's done his medical at Collingwood and everything's like, he's coming, you know. So I think, and the reception that he got from like Justin Lepich and stuff when they were talking, the vibe was like, yeah, we're looking at him, and like it was just more of a positive sort of expression in the tone of the voice and stuff like that. So you pick on little things and you're like, oh, I reckon we're on here for that one there. So let's talk about Tim Membry. Now, he kicked 30 goals last year. Now, I was looking at the stats. If he comes to Collingwood and he kicks 30 goals, that's the same as what Bobby Hill kicked, and he was our leading goal scorer. So I know that's been said by a few supporters and stuff like that, but if you put another 30 goals into our team, we're, like, for season just past, we're top 4, if you think about it. All those close games that we lost, the games that we won, our percentage goes a bit higher. We go straight into the top 4. So he fits the bill. We know that he had the season he had in 2023. We're not going to get into that, but if he physically and mentally can stay fit, and you always think that when a player goes to a new club, it's a new environment, it's a new football program, things might turn. And they don't have to turn much because he had a pretty consistent year in 2024. So you bring that Tim Membry into our side, look what it does, man. Look what it does for our forward line. Look what it does for Jamie Elliott. He doesn't have to play as a tall forward anymore, right? It can free up a lot more of my check. When Cox or Cameron come down back as well, when they're relieving from the ruck, all of a sudden, the main defender's gonna have to go on them because the guys, they're almost 7 foot tall, so they're gonna clunk it no matter what. So the dynamic of having that extra person there is massive. Think about 2010, right? You had Travis Cloak, you had Chris Dawes, and when you had Lee Brown come, everything, the manic pressure, you had Medhurst, you had Didak, you had all these players at their feet and stuff like that. And I see that being the same this season. When you've got Myercheck, you've got McStay, you've got Checkers, but then you've got Jamie Elliott, you got Bobby Hill, you got Lockie Schultz, you've got Bo McCreary, who's going to come into who's to probably start forward, and then he'll come into the stoppages. Like, it's awesome. It's awesome. And this is what we need. We need that third tall forward. Will he play every game? I don't know. And I hope so, because a fully fit Tim Membry, his role is so important, and he gets into that side every single day of the week. On the flip side, the defense, the next one, Adam Tomlinson. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'll give my honest opinion, and people don't have to agree with it, so you can drop a comment, you can tell me what you think. I think he's a bit of a witch's hat, and I don't really see him playing much senior football. I see him being very good for the development of the young guys like TJ, Jacob Ryan, and even helping Markov. I see like the benefit in that, but it's going to mean that you're going to have Tomlinson, Frampton, and Charlie Dean fighting for the same spot, and that is what you want. I think one of those 3 players will definitely get in. I'm still sort of leaning towards the Frampton side of things, but who knows? So if he's available and there's not many defenders and stuff there, then yes, get him. And it's not going to cost us a pick or anything like that. So just go for it. Our draft hand is probably, and this is going obviously with the interview that Lepich had, our draft hand's going to be pushed into the 40s now. There is talk about on actual draft night, which will be the second night, I believe, that this will probably happen, but us potentially trading one of the draft picks, going to another club to try and get a couple of more, which would be closer in if there's a player that they like. I know there's a tall forward from the Northern Knights. I think his last name's Sims. They're after him, but I think he'll go a lot earlier, and we'll probably miss out on him. If we get him, he'll be a 2 to 3 year project, but he'll be just as good as the King boys up forward. So, that's probably a shit example because I haven't really done much, but, he'll be a really good tall forward, someone a bit more like a McStay probably, but we'll see what happens with that. Who knows? I'm not going to post a best Collingwood 23 right now. I'm going to wait until the delisted guys come into the team because, who knows what will happen. But I'm pretty confident Membry is the one that they're after, and that'll all get done. Once that happens, I'll post a best 23 and we can talk about that. On a side note, I just want to say thanks to everyone for the 400 subscribers, and it's already growing, which is awesome. I'm really happy with the reception that it's getting so far, so I will continue to make the videos. If you've got any suggestions, please leave a comment. But until then, call it as you see it. Leave a comment down below. Go the Pies.